Hi there, Sharif here with Engadget, looking at the Canon PowerShot G1 X. This camera continues in Canon's enthusiast line, following on from the G11 and the G12, but it's not just more of the same, it's a lot heavier than those older models, and it's also a lot more expensive at $800. The main difference is that it packs a much bigger sensor. It's not quite as big as you'd find on most DSLRs, at about 80% of the size of APS-C, but it's still big for a compact, and it means you can shoot better quality images in low light at the max resolution of 14 megapixels, because those pixels aren't too crowded on the sensor, and it also allows for those all-important shallow depth of field shots. Having a bigger sensor also means you need a bigger lens, which contributes more to the overall chunkiness. It's obviously still a lot smaller than a DSLR though. It is a compact camera, and therefore you can shoot with it in more situations where people might react badly to having a big lens put in their faces. And that is the whole point of a camera like this. The lens is a 4x zoom with the equivalent of 28mm to 112mm, which should be both wide enough and zoomy enough for the kind of walking around photography that this camera is intended for. It's a fixed lens, you can't change it. But if you're going to be trapped with one lens, then it might as well be this one. It's reasonably fast considering the price point, with a maximum aperture of f2.8, and that also helps you with more flexibility with depth of field. Overall, the design of the camera shows a lot of logic and thoughtfulness. You get manual dials for shooting mode, exposure compensation, an aperture here at the front, so manual shooting is almost as easy as the average DSLR. One thing missing though is a dedicated dial for ISO, which the G12 had and which is now gone. At the back we have an articulating 3-inch LCD. It's not just a tilting display, it rotates both ways, and it shows all the right information and doesn't use any esoteric symbols. You can see the histogram and the spirit level there. They're both there by default and they're both very useful. To the right of that you have a more complicated set of buttons which do take some learning. For example, if you want to take better control of your focus, then you might do a typical navigation like this. You're pressing menu to set your focus mode, then we'll choose Flexi Zone. Then you'll find that this button here, that's your focus control button, that will now activate the zone choice, which you select with the D-pad. If you select a different focus mode, here we can select tracking, then the focus mode will activate that instead. It's logical and you'll quickly get the hang of it, and also the menu system has lots of hints and tips to help you along. The shortcut button is very useful, lets you assign a setting that you use a lot, like self-timer or white balance. We use those quite a bit. There's a quick video record button triggering 1080 at 24 frames a second. Video is good with the flip out LCD and you can zoom while shooting. And I was happy with some clips, but others revealed slow autofocus, which is typical of stills cameras really, and also too many abrupt changes in white balance and exposure. The flash works well for subjects at the right distance, and overall the camera is good for quick trigger shooting. You can power up and snap off a shot in just a few seconds, especially if you use the optical viewfinder. Apart from that though, the OVF really isn't that useful because it isn't through the lens. It just roughly mimics the view through the lens as you zoom in and out, and it displays no visual aids at all. The camera has other issues like mediocre battery life and slow continuous shooting, but its biggest weakness is probably the dilemma that you'll have with the price. For $800 you're getting a smaller sensor than a similarly priced DSLR, not as good low light performance, slower continuous shooting, and also you're not getting interchangeable lenses. Other compacts like the Sony Nexi 3 also offer these things for less money, albeit without the same level of manual control. That said, if you're ready to spend $800 for this form factor, housing this good size sensor, then you might find this is a pretty compelling purchase. The closest competition is probably the Olympus EP3. That's it for now. Check out my written review for more details. Thanks for your time. Bye bye.